In February 2023, Cyclone Gabrielle hit the North Island of New Zealand. It brought destruction, cut power, internet and communications to thousands of residents. It left some without food and water, and for others it brought missing loved ones and death. New Zealand issued a national state of emergency, only the third time in its history. The New Zealand Defence Force and teams from around the world are here to continue looking for loved ones who are missing and helping with the recovery. Half of New Zealand's population has been affected. It will take years to recover from this. Hi guys, it's great to be back. My name is TJ, if you haven't been before. I have been away for quite a long time, I must admit, and I have not been working at the moment, so I've got a bit of time, bit of energy, so I thought I would sort of come back and look at some cases and other stuff. This isn't the greatest thing that I wanted to come back on. Cyclone Gabrielle has been devastating to the North Island of New Zealand. We're going to take a look at some of the death and destruction. We're going to look at some of the stories, and we're going to look at and remember loved ones who are missing and or deceased and who we lost, and we're going to look at their stories. It's a very sad story, but it's also very fluid. At the moment in the North Island, we have a huge deluge of rain. We have heavy rain warnings. We've got people being evacuated. We've got people getting trapped in cars, the whole 9 yards. So all the shit that's gone on is just more. It's just more. And I'm in the South Island, thank goodness. I have no idea what it's like for people up there. I'm just doing my best to support them however I can. So come take a little bit of a journey with me. Like I said, things are fluid, so if things change I may need to make an update video, one or two, but we will go from there. Thanks for being here guys, I've missed you so much. Let's go look. So I am betting that some of you are not from New Zealand and don't know much about us. So I'm going to point out whereabouts the cyclone has made the worst impact. So if we look at the North Island here, it did a lot of damage in the upper North Island here, which we call Northland. Auckland itself was hard hit, especially along these beaches down here, the West Coast beaches, which we'll take a look at. We're going to be talking about Muriwai. It's there. The cyclone tracked round here and all the way down the west coast. The worst hit is Hawke's Bay, which is this region, and we're going to talk about a lot of numbers in that region. So let's take a look. You'd think I'd be more organised, right? First time back and all. So we're going to look at nzherald.co.nz. As I said, you can see there two guys escaping through the windows. This is floodwaters happening right now. So we're going to get into what's happened and then look into what's happening right now, which I just can't believe it's happening again. So this was released today, 24th of February. By the numbers, Hawke's Bay death toll, missing persons, red-stickered homes and cars destroyed. We're going to see some crazy photos. It's hard to believe, to be honest. It's a tale of two islands right now, I feel. Yeah, Hawke's Bay was the hardest hit region in the country in terms of damage and deaths caused by Cyclone Gabrielle. 10 days on from the devastating floods here is what we know in numbers. The confirmed death toll following Cyclone Gabrielle is 8 in Hawke's Bay as at Friday afternoon. 1 person has also died in Gisborne and 2 in Auckland as a result of the cyclone, taking the confirmed death toll to 11 across the country as of Friday the 24th. There are 23 people uncontactable. The number of people who have been uncontactable since the floods last Tuesday, February 14th, sits at 23 people across Hawke's Bay and Gisborne, which has fallen drastically over the past week. More than 100 police staff have been working on matching and verifying people reported as uncontactable. a police statement read. There are 80 so far red stickered homes and buildings. Red stickers mean they are badly damaged. You cannot go in. It's unsafe to go in, and you can tell by this picture that this house is going to be one of them. 80 homes and buildings. It's a huge number, and there's lots more to come. Bulk of those 78 buildings are located in the Hastings district, which includes flood-ravaged locations such as Esk Valley and Puketapu. Now, they talk about Puketapu. I just want to show you sort of inland, because a lot of inland is where the devastation has happened. So again, we look at the Hawke's Bay, but we're going sort of inland a bit. These areas in here got really, really badly hit. Our building inspection team has been bolstered by an additional 20 plus inspectors who have come to Hastings from around the country. There are 840 yellow stickered homes and buildings across Napier, Hastings and Central Hawke's Bay districts, meaning they have moderate damage and entry is restricted, such as part of the building being deemed unsafe to enter. The bulk of those 643 are located in the Hastings district. Thousands of cars written off. The owner of a tow truck business in Hawke's Bay says the number of vehicles destroyed by the floods in the region is in the thousands. And as you take a look at this silt, this is the crap that was left by the rivers in the water. When it was wet, it was just muddy sludge. And then with a few days dry, it turns into this hard, cracked crap. The guy says he has a mountain of jobs that have been given to him by the insurance companies, but at this stage a lot are inaccessible. 2,789 people without power still. On Friday, Unison said its progress in restoring power to rural communities in Hawke's Bay was being impacted by continuing wet weather in the region. We just managed to touch on that before. There's a lot of wet weather going on right now. While the weather is holding up rural restoration efforts, crews will continue with repairs in urban and rural areas that are accessible and where conditions are safe, and resume efforts to areas still isolated as soon as it's safe. Those without power in Hawke's Bay, mostly in outlying rural areas. There are small pockets still without power in urban areas due to isolated flood-damaged assets or faults, but they are repairing these street by street. Unfortunately, police have reported in the Gisborne and Hawke's Bay area there have been between 5 and 35 people arrested daily from Monday. Now, a lot of these offences include burglaries, but the police have stated that there's a lot of family harm going on, which you can kind of understand. It's not good, but you can kind of understand that there's a lot of stress out there, a lot of stress. There's also a lot of looting going on, and it just blows my mind how people can prey on vulnerable people who have lost their homes in times like this. It just beggars belief to me, but it happens everywhere, doesn't it? Dozens of bridges destroyed or damaged. A staggering number of bridges have been destroyed or badly damaged on Hawke's Bay roads. Hastings District Council alone has reported 8 of its bridges destroyed and a further 18 bridges damaged on local roads. Now, can you imagine the force that it would take to snap roads in half, really? It's got to be a lot of force. It's insane. The government has released many support packages for businesses, for people who have lost everything, for farmers and growers. Look, here in the South Island where I live, a lot of our fresh fruit and veggies come from the Hawke's Bay. Hawke's Bay wine is really big, and there's just crops and crops that are just gone. Thousands or millions of dollars worth. Very, very sad. For our next story that we're going to look at, we're going to go to look at Muriwai. It's on the coast here of Auckland, little coastal sort of township. Cyclone Gabrielle, Muriwai firefighter Dave Van Zwanenberg remembered as exceptional husband. A firefighter killed by Cyclone Gabrielle has been remembered as an exceptional husband at a funeral attended by hundreds. A celebration of the life of Dave Van Zwinnenberg took place on Wednesday afternoon at Muriwai's Parihoa farm. Dave and his colleague Craig Stevens were investigating flooding at a house on Mochutaro Road, the main access into the Auckland beachside settlement, on February 13, when a landslide occurred and the house collapsed. The pair were trapped in the slip. Dave's body was found 2 days later, while Craig Stevens died in hospital on February the 16th. At least 900 people were in attendance at the funeral on Wednesday. Escorting the coffin into the funeral site were members of the vet community, as well as animals that Dave treated and fire trucks. Dave's casket was lifted out of the fire truck by his fellow firefighters. His casket was adorned with yellow flowers, photos, a New Zealand flag, and his firefighter helmet. His wife spoke first, paying tribute to her exceptional husband, who would have been mortified at the fanfare being made in his honour, but God, he deserved it. As his love language was acts of service, she knew he would want to be used as the glue that brought so many together in solidarity today, she said. Ours truly was a marriage made in heaven. The challenges we faced only ever brought us closer together. She said Dave parented their 2 children with a mixture of head and heart. She described her husband as one of the calm bays in the world the rest of us gravitate towards for stability in a storm. She said their love had been a fairy tale that started in Western Australia and had been genuine love at first sight. Dave was an equine vet and also flew small planes. His wife said she had packed a bag for her husband just in case the Egyptians were right about the afterlife. She said it contained his trainers, cactus pants, his board shorts, and a book he didn't get to finish. She said, "I am incredibly proud to have been your wife." Muriwai Fire Chief Officer Philome Piri said Dave was a natural-born leader. He had been promoted to station officer a few weeks before his death, and the incident during the cyclone had been his first incident in the position. "You will be sorely missed," he said through tears. A colleague of Dave's at Vet North said he had the ability to tell when anyone was down or in need of help. Clients had written tributes to Dave. He said one read that he was an incredible soul whose love for animals went above and beyond. "Dave, we will miss you as a colleague, a business partner, as a boss, and mostly as a friend." Fire and Emergency New Zealand Chief Executive Kerry Gregory said it was with really deep sadness that he stood at the funeral to farewell Dave. He said Dave exemplified the commitment of our people to serve. He died helping others, working with his mates for the benefit of his community. Gregory thanked Dave for his commitment and service. "Dave, New Zealand is indebted to you. You will be greatly missed." Dave's best mate Tom said a couple of weeks back the firefighter decided to run the Kaimai Ranges on his own overnight. "You did get lost though," he said, "but when you rang me you were pretty stoked with the story." He described Dave as a man who needed to help people and who did that one last time by bringing everyone together to mourn. He said, "Ames and the kids will be all right, mate." The funeral ended with a montage of photos and videos of Dave, many of which were of him, his wife and his children. Very, very sad for a firefighter doing his job to get lost in the cyclone. Is devastating. Okay, we're going to go to newzealandherald.co.nz and we're going to look at the story of the other firefighter. Colleagues pay tribute to fallen Muriwai firefighter Craig Stevens. And if we pause for a minute and just have a wee look at this video, before we could definitely see some of the damage. But yeah, this is horrible. Colleagues have paid tribute to their fallen mates who died after a landslide during Cyclone Gabrielle. Muriwai firefighter Craig Stevens died in hospital last night after he was critically injured on Monday when a house fell in a slip. His colleague Dave was trapped in the wreckage and was found dead on Wednesday. Kerry Gregory, the Fire and Emergency Chief Executive, said in a press conference this afternoon that it was with a heavy heart that they received the news that Craig had died. Now, I must just say, this was on the 17th of February. He died surrounded by his loved ones after fighting valiantly till the end. My thoughts and prayers are with Craig's family and with the family of his firefighter friend Dave. This tragic incident has been a heavy blow for the two families, their friends, colleagues in the Muriwai Volunteer Fire Brigade and then the Muriwai community, and it touches all of us, not just in the Fire and Emergency New Zealand whānau, but emergency services internationally and all New Zealanders. He said it was an awful reminder of the risks firefighters and those involved in emergency response were exposed to every day while protecting and supporting others. I have received messages of condolences for the tragic loss of our firefighters from far and wide, and I endorse the words of our Minister Barbara Edmonds in that we thank the families for sharing their loved ones with all New Zealanders, and we are indebted to them. We really, really are. And New Zealand's just, it really feels for these families. Craig and Dave died helping others, working with their teammates for the benefit of their community. As we mourn them both, we will think of them with pride. He wished to acknowledge everyone affected by the events of this week across the motu, particularly those who had lost homes, communities and loved ones. It was a time where there was still uncertainty for many about what the immediate future held, he said. Friends have set up a Give a Little page for Stevens. I will leave the link to that in the description box below, as I will to all of these that I'm reading, everything and all the information. But wow, New Zealanders have gone crazy. 231,000 donated already. So yeah, if you want to help with that, in fact, if you want to help with any of the relief funds for Cyclone Gabrielle and the victims, I will put quite a few down in the description box below. So if you want to help, you can. Because that's to support his wife Lucy and children, only 6 and 4. He said, I met rock and roll Craig when he moved to Oxford, aged 16, his friend Alex said. We went to many skate parks, saw bands and listened to lots of music. He says, I'm not really sure if he was like my son or my brother, but he was always my guide and mentor. He grabbed life with both hands and shook it into submission, no matter what the situation, he said. Stevens had said to him that his mum told him to walk into any room like he owned the place, and he sure did do that. Well, stand aside, Jesus. There's a new guy in charge of heaven now. Very sad. And so how it unfolded. The Herald understands that Dave and Craig were trying to dig a trench behind a woman's home in Mochitara Road on Monday night to divert water after being called to the property due to flooding. As the pair worked, a giant slab of the hillside above them gave way, inundating the property with a mountain of sodden mud and debris. Craig Stevens was rescued and taken to hospital in critical condition, and the body of Dave was pulled from the wreckage 2 days later. Of course, the family are absolutely devastated. First and foremost, a family man, Dave was dedicated to spending quality time with his children and building a life to nurture their growth. They decided that Muriwai and its beautiful community was the perfect place for this. Monday night started out as just another occasion where Dave made sure we were settled and safe at home and headed out to join the fire brigade and help his community. Reliability and dependability were his core values, whatever the weather. I mean, just look at that destruction. She said her late husband was blessed with the unique abilities so few possess to not only survive but thrive in extreme environments and circumstances, performing complex tasks and caring for others calmly under pressure. Families are grateful to Urban Search and Rescue, the New Zealand Police and the fire and emergency crews involved. Very, very sad. you know, these families have to go on with life. Very, very sad. These guys, volunteer firefighters, died doing their jobs, and it's just absolutely terrible. So this story here was written on the February 17th from stuff.co.nz. Look, I must give a trigger warning because some of these stories are really horrible and really emotional. So if that's not something that you can watch now, maybe you can watch it later, or you might have to just miss it altogether, and I understand, click out of it and watch something else. But let's go. Hawke's Bay man dug for 6 hours to free partner buried under slip. I mean, how anyone could survive this devastation. A Hawke's Bay man dug for 6 hours in a lion-hearted attempt to free his buried partner as wind and rain from Cyclone Gabrielle lashed his home. Shona Wilson died on Tuesday morning when a slip came down into the Tutera house and smashed through her room, burying the woman under 4 metres of dirt. The poor thing was asleep in bed and had no idea what was coming, her partner's son said. She was 59. It was the first death announced by police in Hawke's Bay in relation to Cyclone Gabrielle. Bill, 58, was sleeping on the couch and got up about 4 a.m. to get into bed with his wife his partner when the house was hit by a slip from the hill behind it. Not in a million years we would have thought that the hill could slip, especially my dad. He feels quite guilty about it. He managed to flee the house with his 18-year-old daughter before he returned to try and dig his partner of 9 years out. I think he dug for 6 hours with a shovel. Her room was probably 4 metres under silt. Just devastating. Look at that. I mean, the scale and the height that these waters went, just crazy. Crystal said if the slip had hit 5 metres to the left, it would have hit the main part of the house and could have killed his father and the daughter. Despite his father's best efforts, there was simply too much dirt for him to be able to save her. He was getting nowhere. It's sad what happened. It's hard to comprehend. By mid-morning, local farmers turned up to help with diggers and tractors, but by that time, Crystal had half dug out Shona. It's a big hill, but just behind the house. It's not very big. There's plenty of trees planted. It's the last thing you think of happening, isn't it? It's heartbreaking to think about. She was such a gentle soul. He said she was a militant vegetarian, had 3 children, and ran a mowing business with her 18-year-old daughter. She would give the shirt off her back for anyone. He says, I think this is going to take a while to recover, putting it mildly. Are you ever prepared for something like this? Crystal had managed to helicopter to the property on Thursday morning from Napier and said he saw State Highway 2 largely destroyed with parts of the road completely washed out. He believes that a completely new road will need to be built. So they've got to give a little page for Shona's funeral going as well. But I will put that in the description box below. 20,000 so far. It's going to need more, guys, because funerals cost a lot of money, unfortunately. I would really love to do some survival stories, but just looking at the loved ones lost and missing is going to take up a long time. So we're going to look at another sad loss here. Stuff.co.nz. Flood victim was a loving father, engineer and small cattle farmer. This was written on February 23rd. A man found dead after it's thought he drove across a bridge damaged in Cyclone Gabrielle must have drowned trying to get out of the truck, says the neighbour who found his body. Ray Knowles was the one to find Brendan Miller's body after a group of orchard workers told him they'd spotted the Crown Thorpe locals' distinctive red truck washed up on a bank on Saturday. He'd been reported missing the day before after family were unable to make contact. We went to have a look at it and walked a bit further down the river, and we found his body there. Knowles lamented the loss of the likeable young father, Brendan Miller, who was devoted to his partner Helen and son Henry. Despite having only lived in Crown Thorpe a short time, the Canadian-born engineer was well regarded and known as being someone who helped out, who said Knowles, who lived next door. He would do anything for anyone. He was a really well-liked person. Even though he hadn't been here long, he was popular with just about everybody. That's with his son. That's absolutely gorgeous. The family had settled in Crown Thorpe, where Wilson was originally from, about 4 years ago, and Miller was said to have always wanted to own a piece of land. His neighbour said, or the one to find his body, after a group of orchard workers told him they'd spotted his distinctive red truck washed up on a bank on Saturday. He'd been reported missing the day before, after family were unable to make contact. His neighbour said they'd likely never know exactly what happened, but supposed he was heading to work as he travelled widely around the region. Unfortunately, we're never going to know why he went to the river where he did. It's believed he set off sometime on Tuesday morning and didn't see that a local bridge had been washed out. Brendan will certainly be missed. Good old Kiwis. Brendan will certainly be missed for his engineering expertise, and that will be a big loss to all of us around here. Everyone was expecting him to be here for years, and now he's gone. The granddaughter of the neighbour has made a small wooden cross that they attached to the bridge, and people had put flowers at the site. A great guy, a great loss, and I'm sure his partner and his little son Henry will miss him greatly. His sister, Melissa, has set up a Give a Little page asking for donations to help rebuild their farm and provide for their son. Let's take a quick look. I'll put this in the description box below as well. Last week, the horrendous Cyclone Gabrielle violently took the life of Henry's dad, Brendan Miller. Brendan, a loving father, an engineer and small cattle farmer with Helen and Crown Thorpe Hastings, was the key financial provider for their son Henry of 3.5 years. While no amount of money is ever going to bring Brendan back, Henry and his mum Helen need our help to try and rebuild their lives. Not only have they lost Brendan, but there is also a lot of cyclone damage to their small farm, and they have lost their livestock, their livelihood. The Give a Little page said that Wilson needed help to get her farm back into working order, which included clearing the silt and debris, replacing fences and livestock, plus a bit of help to service the mortgage and put food on the table while they get back on their feet. So, just more devastation. I can't understand what these people are going through. Let's take another look at something else. Looking at stuff.co.nz, we're going to look at someone who can't be found. He can't just disappear. Heartbreaking wait continues for man missing after Cyclone Gabrielle hit. This was put together yesterday. And this is Joseph Ahuriri. As the wait for news goes on, a partner's heartbreak grows. I don't know what to do, Clarissa Poy sobs. Waking up on Thursday morning, she did what she's done every morning since her partner Joseph disappeared. She reached for her phone and prayed there would be a text from police saying he's been found. But again, there was nothing, leaving Clarissa in an anguished limbo. She is losing hope as time goes on, but she can't grieve because there's no evidence, no information as to what happened to the father of 9 kids. He just can't disappear like that, she said. Now she doesn't know what to do next. She searched extensively, visiting welfare centres in Napier and scanning roads for his white Toyota Hilux, but with no sightings and only a vague idea of the route he took. There's little more that she can do. She last heard from her partner over 10 days ago on the Monday night that Cyclone Gabrielle hit. He had been visiting whānau in Hawke's Bay and was planning to head back to her in Gisborne, but as conditions deteriorated, causing roads to close, the couple decided he should stay in a motel in Napier. His last text at 1 a.m. on Tuesday morning was to ask if she was okay. Since then, Poi has heard nothing. All she knows is that Joseph checked out of the motel at 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning. By then, Napier City and Hastings District were under a state of emergency and main roads were flooded and covered in debris. It's so hard, she told staff as she waits by her phone. His brother Mike says waiting for news is proving really difficult. He's continuing to work in Christchurch, which is in the South Island, but his heart is with the ongoing search for his youngest brother up north. He's a part of me, he says, of their relationship as the two youngest siblings in their family. He believes his brother may have taken a back road inland from Napier to Gisborne due to the road closures. He would have been trying to get back to his children. Despite the ongoing search for Joseph, the overall number of people missing has reduced, which we've seen. On Thursday morning, which is yesterday, Hawke's Bay USAR team, the number of people unaccounted was in single figures. Cooper described the search conditions as arduous and said it was something that he had never seen before. Thousands of friends and whānau have reached out to a Hawke's Bay missing person Facebook page since the cyclone to find loved ones after communication was cut off. Here is a picture of his ute. Obviously, if you see that, please get in touch with the police. While most have been able to confirm the safety of those that were initially uncontactable, others have been left waiting for news. Among those proving particularly difficult to trace are people with a transient lifestyle, particularly those that live in mobile homes or buses. However, other factors have made some people difficult to trace, including one Napier man who hadn't contacted his mother or ex-partner due to him being in prison, unbeknownst to the family. So there's a few reasons why people go missing. Sadly, we're missing people, and we just hope that they're found. Let's keep going.
Next, looking at nzherald.co.nz, this was
Gabrielle, rugby league star.
The Taranaki Rugby League stalwart. George Luke, the father of former Kiwi star Isaac Luke, after he died following a slip on the Taihape Napier Road when Cyclone Gabrielle swept over the North Island earlier this week. Luke and his partner Goodman were returning to Hastings from Rotorua on Monday night and took the winding route over the Kaweka Ranges when bad weather closed the Napier-Taupo Road. When the family did not hear from them, a desperate search was launched, with appeals being made on social media. They were eventually located yesterday and evacuated by helicopter separately and flown to Hawke's Bay Hospital in Hastings, where he later died. Goodman was all scratched up, according to one family member, but is now recovering. They told the Herald that a slip hit the couple's car twice, and if Goodman hadn't gone to find help, they would have both been gone. Former Warriors and Kiwi star Isaac Luke said he was broken by his father's death. "My first hero," he wrote on social media. "See you soon, Dad. I love you." The Hawera Hawks paid tribute to Luke on social media, referring to him as their totara tree. And here's him now. "You were always there to guide us," they wrote. "Father, brother, koro, uncle, mentor, and a friend. We are going to miss you dearly." Yeah, the official number of fatalities stands at, this was 7. Yeah, and there's a couple here that we might not be able to get into. A 59-year-old woman was found dead in the roof cavity of a cottage. A body of a man aged 70s was found in Waiheke in Hawke's Bay. And we'll go over a couple of those. At this stage, 3,500 were still uncontactable. So to have that down to double digits, quite low, is really good. Devastating, but this story is particularly sad. It involves a child, so trigger warning. This is nzherald.co.nz, and this was 17th Feb. Cyclone Gabrielle, mother of Ivy Collins, says drowned 2-year-old was bright shining light. Tragedy has cost the family everything. The mother of the 2-year-old Eskdale girl killed during Cyclone Gabrielle says her daughter was a bright shining light, and the family is mourning the loss of our beautiful baby girl. Ella Collins told the Herald that Ivy, who was swept away on floodwaters early on Tuesday morning, charged through life with a beautiful smile on her face regardless of what stood in her way. Everyone that met her was astounded by her ability to communicate well beyond her years. Her exceptional vocabulary, coupled with deep empathy and a compassion, a thirst for knowledge, led to days filled with excellent conversation. She had a great sense of humour, was very creative and determined to overcome all obstacles, even if sometimes that took a lot of velociraptor screeching and frustration, her mum said. It's just beautiful. Ella, who was pregnant with her 3rd child, and husband Jack were woken about 3 a.m. on Tuesday with water inside their home. Ella said the family were not wealthy, but we lived such rich and love-filled days. Our children are our life, she said. We take pride in our complete devotion to our babies, and this loss of Ivy will deeply impact ourselves and many others forever. Right now, it seems unsurmountable mountain, but we have each other, my husband Jack, our daughter Imogen, and baby Ju in August, and our family, friends, and community. We all have each other. This tragedy has cost us everything, our home and everything in it, with the water level 10 centimetres from the ceiling. 10 centimetres from the ceiling has been utterly destroyed in our section and our incredible, lovingly tended edible garden. Nothing is salvageable. But none of that loss compares even close to the loss of our beautiful baby girl. It was dark in the house, there was no power, and the couple decided to take a child each on their shoulders and get to the neighbour's house and onto their roof. They knew they had to get out. Jack's brother Adam told the Herald the family were woken about 3 a.m. on Tuesday with water inside the house. The couple, Jack and his pregnant wife Ella, quickly got their 2 daughters, Imogen and Ivy. They were trying to come up with a plan. They had a few minutes trying to get the dogs inside, organise the pets, and then this wave came through which added to the water in the house quite significantly, sort of halfway up the walls. At that point, they knew they had to get out. It was a 1-story house and they didn't have roof space. It was dark in the house, there was no power, and the couple decided to take a child each on their shoulders and get to the neighbour's house. They've got a kid each. They go out the door and another wave comes through on the way over to this house. It takes Ella away. She says, "Save Imogen." My brother Jack managed to scramble onto this house and rips open the roof, cutting up his arm pretty bad, and he throws this little kid onto the roof space and says, "Stay there." He doesn't know if he's coming back. He finds his wife floating around and manages to get her back to safety, but by that time they'd lost the little one. There's nothing they could have done. She had her on her shoulders and she slipped out. Her feet were taken out from underneath. This is a picture that clearly shows a car being slammed into the middle of a house. Something that you can't quite believe. Unreal. Adam said his brother spent hours in the dark trying to find his daughter, including climbing a tree and yelling out her name, while also helping his neighbours get to safety inside the roof space. They spent the next 8 hours in there huddled up together, with pink bats waiting to be rescued. They were all hypothermic. The family were eventually rescued from the home, and the following day Ivy was found. There was nothing they could have done more than they did. We are all so proud of how he responded. We have no doubt that all 5 of them are still here today because of the way he responded. Ivy was a beautiful little cherub, just starting to develop her own little character. Ella posted on Facebook on Thursday that her daughter had died. It was an unavoidable accident and she died very quickly, she said. We are all going to need all the love that we can get. Search and rescue had found Ivy's body and she was now with the coroner. Our home, our section and all our belongings have been completely destroyed. She said Jack Collins was the only reason she, their oldest child and neighbours survived. He is a literal effing hero and one day I'll tell you all what he's done. Another Give a Little page, what we'll look into, has been set up for the family, which has so far raised more than 30. That one. There's so many. Oh my gosh, look at this, guys. 264,000 so far donated. I'll have this in the description box below if you want to look at it. We still have a couple more stories to go. Stuff.co.nz. We all loved her so much. Grieving Daughter's tribute to cyclone victim. When Rachel Green last spoke to her mother Marie about 8 p.m. on Monday, they talked about Cyclone Gabrielle, which was forecast to bring heavy rain and strong winds to Hawke's Bay. The pair agreed she would stay inside her cottage on Dartmoor Road and Puketapu, west of Napier, unless she was forced out by flooding. The call ended with Green 22 telling her mother that she loved her very much. And I love you too was the reply. Less than 12 hours later, the Tutaikuri River burst its bank and sent a torrent of water towards Puketapu and Marie's home. For 4 days, her daughter, who was stranded in Wellington, desperately sought news of her mother's whereabouts. But the 59-year-old cell phone went straight to answer phone. She wasn't with friends and her name didn't appear on any list of Puketapu residents who had flagged themselves as being safe. On Friday, Rachel said she received the call she'd been dreading. Her mother's body had been found in the bedroom of her cottage by her landlord's son. She said, I want everyone to know what an amazing person she was and how loved she was, she said through tears. Her
worked as a checkout operator at New World in Napier. She was generous and kind and would light up a room. She's one of the most generous people you'd ever meet. She had the sort of personality that everyone gravitated towards. She was an all-round people person who loved being with her friends and family. Puketapu is one of the areas of Hawke's Bay most severely affected by Cyclone Gabrielle. As floodwater inundated the rural community on Tuesday, residents were plucked from roofs. Bridges had been destroyed, homes inundated with mud and silt, and cars and motorhomes strewn across paddocks. The discovery of her body brings the death toll at that time to 8. Okay, that's the end of that one. Let's look at the next one. Stuff.co.nz. Devoted and protective mother confirmed dead in Cyclone Gabrielle. This was February 20. The daughter of a woman who was last seen disappearing under a wall of water has confirmed her body had been found. Susan Cacchiopoli, I'm sorry I can't do that, was last seen by her boyfriend on Tuesday morning after floodwaters ripped through the Esk Valley home they were house sitting. It's believed her body was found washed up on a beach. The death toll, of course, stands at 11. Her daughter Bianca said she was a cheerful, welcoming, kind constant in her children's lives and would be remembered as a devoted and protective mother and daughter and sister. And Uma, she was always the happiest when with her family. Brian said she was disappointed that the family found out details of her final hours via media. That's not cool. She said she actually heard it on the radio, and the publication of details of her last moments stole any remaining light away from a family holding on to hope and praying for a safe outcome without the decency to reach out to us first. So that's awful. However, the family were grateful to those that had endeavoured to fast-track the stressful search. We also extend our gratitude to those working day and night throughout the disaster, and thank you for bringing our mum home to us. She had also shared her mum's breast cancer fight, resulting in 11 arduous surgeries in the past 15 years, and said The last few years had been particularly hard for her mum following the death of her husband and their father. She remained the superglue that held our family together with her inexhaustible love, no matter the troubles in her life. While we wish more than anything to see her walk through the door with one heck of a survival story to tell, we find comfort in knowing she is now held closely in Dad's arms. She said arrangements to celebrate her life were uncertain at the moment due to the chaotic situation. The owners of the house where her and her boyfriend Gareth were staying were flying back from overseas when the worst of Gabrielle devastated their home and orchard. So at about 2:30 a.m. on Tuesday, floodwaters ripped through the house at an absolutely mad speed. Even though the building had been designed to survive floods, it was built on 1.2 metre piles. Gareth decided to secure some of our more valuable stuff, and he didn't think it could get much worse. But the water kept rising. At that stage, he simply could not flee the property in a safe way because the water was well beyond any vehicle being able to drive out of there. No boat, nothing to get out of there. So Gareth and his girlfriend sought refuge on a bench top in the kitchen, and the water kept rising. He smashed his way through the jib board in the ceiling. They clambered up into the ceiling space, and when they were up there, a 40-foot container took the front half of the house off. It smashed through the walls of the living room. That's when the house actually opened up, he said. Gareth, now injured in hospital, had described the scene to him over the phone. We think he lost his girlfriend that night. She disappeared underwater. She disappeared under the house, and she's been missing. They both managed to get into the ceiling. When the water kept rising into the ceiling space, they had to clamber onto the roof. And as they were trying to work their way from the ceiling space onto the roof, only Gareth made it. He tried to help her, obviously, but a log separated them. Gareth managed to get onto the roof and was rescued by a helicopter after his daughter in Napier had reported him missing. Meanwhile, a 10-day rahui has been placed on Hawke's Bay due to concerns that human remains may have been washed to the sea in the floodwaters. It means a ban on fishing and seafood gathering in Hawke's Bay for at least the next 10 days. This is a Māori tradition. Due to the recent Cyclone Gabrielle and the disturbance to our whenua, tangata whenua are still recovering to Papaku from the still missing list from Tangaroa, the Trust posted on Facebook. We also believe koiwi from flooded Urupa have been carried through the floods to sea. So that's why they're putting that rahui on. So we're nearly at the end here for this video because it is a long one. I want to quickly cover this last story of a loss, and then we're going to just check up quickly on the conditions right now that's happening. Stuff.co.nz, family of much-loved farmer John Coates, who died in Cyclone Gabrielle, thank community. The sons of John Coates, who died at his Whatatutu Tairāwhiti home when floodwaters engulfed his property on Tuesday, have sent a heartfelt thank you to the community that has supported them even as they cope with damage to their homes. John Coates was born and lived his whole life in the region, 64. In 1999, he returned to the home he was born in where his father died on a 120-hectare property. There he worked in earthworks and the forestry industry, had summer crops, grazed the land and raised livestock. He enjoyed his life here. He wasn't leaving. His son Guy Coates said on Saturday afternoon as council officials, yellow stickered his home. Coates was a father of 4, a much-loved granddad, was preparing to evacuate the property on Tuesday morning when he died. Guy Coates, who lived next door to his father with his partner and children, said the floodwaters rose incredibly rapidly, and we've heard that from everybody. As the water came up, Guy moved livestock, then he returned home to raise the alarm at his father's. At that time, the property had been spared from inundation, but the situation quickly changed, he said. I came down here to get Johnny up. There was no water here, and then I walked back to his home and was getting my stuff out, my kids and my partner. And that time, 5 minutes or something, the water was coming over my bonnet, which is like the front of the car if you're not from New Zealand. Dad had hopped in the car to leave, and I said I'd meet him out front. We got out, he wasn't up there, and so we came back down in the digger in the daylight hours. He discovered his father's body on this section. The brothers faced a significant clean-up job. Mud and silt around the property was ankle deep, and the homes weren't habitable. Chris Coates and their family were incredibly thankful to the community and neighbours, many who they didn't know, who had come to help. In the first couple of days, we had 30-odd people here. We really appreciate the help from the people who came along. People I didn't even know were turning up with diggers and water blasters and bobcats, and that was what we had around us. I think one of the things that I get out of these stories is the community and the help that they give each other in times of need. You know, they were shocked at the speed of the flooding, said Chris. The amount of water that's entered into this one little pocket in a 30-minute time frame, you can only class it as a tsunami of water that's coming through. Just dreadful. So it's been a long video. Let's take a look at the current rain going on. Auckland weather warning, live updates, heavy rain, flood warnings for Auckland, Coromandel, Hawke's Bay and Gisborne, all the areas that have been hit by Cyclone Gabrielle. A heavy deluge of rain has wreaked more havoc in many parts of Auckland, Northland and Coromandel, with rising floodwaters and heavy floodwaters forcing the evacuation of some properties and trapping motorists. Up to 30 students and their parents are stranded at a school in Northland as heavy rain caused flooding. Kaiwaka School put the call out for 30 blankets as students and parents prepared to hunker down for the night. Parts of Northland, Auckland and Coromandel have been hit by heavy rain and thunderstorms. The third time in less than a month the regions have been hit by severe weather. There's thunderstorm watches issued for southern Auckland and Coromandel this afternoon. Gosh, it's just terrible. And I was reading earlier on that people were getting, like, people out of trapped cars and stuff. So earlier this evening, 2 emergency mobile alerts were issued to advise our most vulnerable communities of the heightened risk of slips and flooding from thunderstorms. And I've been in contact with the councillors in all those wards. Oh gosh, we're not out of the woods yet. One man travelling from Whangarei to Auckland today got caught in Mangawhai in the intense floodwaters. He says, I've been driving around for about 4 hours back and forth trying to find a way out. All roads are closed or washed out or blocked by slips or floods. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. Some really horrible stories. And it's still going on. We're still missing people. We've got this new deluge of rain. It's just a horrible story, whatever way you look at it. And I just pray that it's not going to keep happening. You know, but we haven't treated this world right. So climate change is real and it's here. Thank you for sticking around. I know this was a long video. It was a sad one to do. It's not the best. I haven't done a video in a long time, so bear with me. I thank you guys. I'll see you soon. I might have to make another part to this, but thanks for joining me and thanks for sharing the stories of those loved ones. All the information, all the links to all these stories will be in the description box below, along with all those Give a Little pages if you want to donate or help. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next time.